My interest in forensics has to do with the preservation of materials rather than the definition of it or how the police use it or investigations and identification of individuals. When anything has been buried in the ground, as an archaeologist, I know that excavating something out of the ground changes the environment that that object is in.
When we recover remains, what we ideally want to do is maintain the condition of the remains so that someone further down the line who's doing an analysis doesn't see something different from what I saw. And that includes things like just packaging them properly so they don't dry out or become too wet. Because if they break while I'm handling them, that makes the analysis of them more difficult.
Sometimes evidence seems to change where it's gathered at the scene, and by the time it gets into a police lockup and a year later, 2 years later, it ends up in a courtroom, the evidence can have physically changed. And there's reasons for that, but the preservation of that is the preservation of the truth that we see at the scene. So if we are gathering that material as evidence for a case, we have to preserve it in a truthful manner. We have to preserve it in a way that it remains consistent with what it was at the time, so that we can draw the same conclusions from it at the beginning of the case, the middle of the case, and at the trial.
The first step when you're doing inventory and you're documenting everything, it's direct observation. You need to observe what you have without thinking anything about it. You're just looking at things. What do I have in front of me? Is it a shirt? Is it a jacket? Could it have been used as a jacket? Is it a belt? What it is that you're looking at. And then I start to think a little bit beyond that and say, okay, what else can we look at in here? Is this belt males or females? Is this belt telling us about the weight of this person? Just trying to go a little bit beyond just the pure description of the artifact I have in front of me.
Everything that you document and write down and keep in a file becomes fair game in a court case. And you want to make sure that you keep good records of what you're doing, when you're doing it, and keeping them in an organized fashion, because you never know when you're going to be asked to go to court.
You have to have a continuous record of what happened to those remains. Basically, you're trying to avoid the allegation that somebody had access to the evidence where they could add to it, subtract, or alter the evidence in any way. So you keep meticulous records of what you received and what you did to it, and then ultimately when you gave up the remains. So that's a chain of custody. It provides a continuity of evidence that's essential for satisfying the courts of law.
We record as much as we possibly can. We do it as objectively as we can and as accurately as we can. We do it using video, mapping, still photography, writing, drawing, sketching, writing in notebooks, doing a very accurate laser map. Anything that we can to accurately record the archaeological site or the forensic site that we are destroying as we dig.
Thank you.